It's so great to have the two of you in this discussion with us today. We're going to be talking about the fundamentals of what it takes to be part of a worship team. So welcome, Liesel.
Thank you,
Welcome,
Morten.
Arnu. But before we get going, I think you look a little bit uncomfortable. I think we need some support there for your feet. Yeah. If we can get that going, that'll be great. Thank you very much. Oh, wonderful.
Thank you. I will not put my foot down any longer. I'll just sit
Thank you.
here. Thank you very much. This
Wonderful. Okay, so as we get going today, obviously we all function, we've been functioning in and around worship teams for a long time, and obviously in different contexts.
Yeah.
So currently, where you're at now, which campus are you at and what's your function there, Liesel?
I'm at Doxa Deo Park View. Totally different when I was still leading at Doxa Deo Ferry Glen. So from time to time I lead worship and I have the wonderful opportunity to go and visit our other Doxa Deos during rehearsals and so. So it's a total different perspective to what I was used to in terms of Ferry Glen, small campus, big campus, etc., etc.
Okay, and you, Arnu?
So I'm at Doxa Deo George campus, and on paper you have a certain function, but in reality, in a new plant of a campus, it's pretty much everything. But yeah, the responsibilities are ministry-wise, but also strongly towards the worship as well. And also very different from when I was arts and creative communicator in Midstream, which is a bit of a bigger campus.
Yeah, different setting.
Different dynamics, different setup, different everything.
Okay.
It's quite interesting, yeah.
So, and I think the nice thing about our discussion today, we're going to be talking about the fundamentals of being part of a worship team. And I don't want to limit it to a worship team. Let's think about if somebody says, listen, I want to be a part of the photography team at your church, or I want to be a part of the graphic design team, or I want to be a dancer in the ministry team. Maybe I want to do tech. You know, is it the same? Are the fundamentals the same for everybody, or is it slightly different for a different environment, would you say?
For me, fundamentals is fundamentals.
Okay.
It's this, for me, there's certain principles that's the foundation of a worship team, no matter what the expression is.
Okay.
Truth is truth, and fundamentals always are the building blocks of a worship team.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, the foundations are crucial, and I think obviously the functioning within a worship team, it might look different in different areas and different spaces, but it's still a team.
Okay.
And we need to function as a team.
Okay. So I'm just going to ask a couple questions about what do you think is necessary. If somebody comes to you and say, listen, I want to be a part of a worship team, what are you looking for? What are the qualities that person should have? What are some of the things, just off the top of your head, what do you say?
First things first, relationship with Jesus. There's for me
But what if they are really, really talented and they say, listen, I'm still figuring out my relationship with God.
But they're really,
okay, we'll get back to that now. We'll get back to that now.
That will get in. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, I was the epiphany of everything that was not in a true intimate relationship with Jesus. I mean, now I'm talking many moons ago. Luckily, I had a shepherd and and somebody that understood there was a calling on my life. But for me, being part of a worship team, that's the fundamental, the basic fundamental. And I think if somebody has talent and you can see the calling, obviously you can take them through a journey, but there will be no stage time, like we say. And it also depends on that person, if they really want to grow in the Word and really want to. But if there's not like, I wasn't saved by Jesus.
Okay.
That's
so
that's for me, that's a non-negotiable.
Okay.
There's not always the maturity, but there can be. If that is a fundamental, it's for me a non-negotiable.
Okay. What would you say? What's important for you?
I think we're going to get to a bigger discussion about this, but a sense of calling is crucial. A sense of calling for someone to. It's easy to be a musician when you're a good musician or a player, or just to be part of a band or part of something. But we're busy with something a lot bigger here. And calling is so crucial to this process.
And I think, we often deal with students, with teenagers saying, listen, I want to be a part of the fusion worship team, or I want to be a part of the evening service worship team. They don't necessarily have this vocabulary yet. So how do you discern in their lingo between there's something drawing them in terms of calling, or they just want the platform and they just want to, show and have all the attention on them? I mean, isn't that a character thing as well, or is it just a calling thing?
I think it's definitely a character thing, and you will easily, I think, as a leader, you'll pick it up. And if I can just tell a bit of my story as well, I also started in the worship team from a very young age, and I think there was the hurdle of, okay, look at me, look at what I can do. Also being a part of a youth band or a youth worship team, and then moving into the church worship team. And I think those stumbling blocks are there, but as leaders, from a leader's side towards me, seeing the potential, seeing the character, the potential of growth in that, I think that's where the magic lies, in seeing the potential and being accountable towards that potential in growing and developing that calling. But you're going to discern the character as a leader.
So let's talk about character for a second, because character tends to be a fluffy word. It's this airy-fairy thing up in the sky. And I mean, it's sometimes difficult to look at somebody and say, do they have good character or poor character? How do you measure character? What would you say? What are the things that you look for in terms of someone's character that says, I want to be a part of your team, I want to serve frequently? What would that look like?
For me, there's a few pointers most of the time. Do they come prepared? Do they keep their word? Are they punctual? Are they team play in terms of what they say they do? Are they aware of what's going around them and embracing the rest of the team? There's a lot of during rehearsals as well. Is there true relationships being built? And if that's not there's many ways to see if all of that is part of the package. Even in an audition process, you sometimes pick it up, but sometimes you don't, and it's a journey. Yeah.
I think it takes time. Honestly, there's no. I mean, let's just be honest for a second. It's easy to fake being a Christian at first. If you say the right things, you just put your hands up in a certain way during worship, and you say the right things during an audition. And you say, listen, I'm a follower of Christ, whatever. It's relatively easy to kind of just wing it. But through relationship and this thing we call discernment that the Holy Spirit gives us, which is beautiful, and as leaders, we have this, and we look at people and we think, okay, and we trust the Holy Spirit to show us, listen, this person has a real relationship with God. But only through relationship and getting to know the person, these things actually come out. Okay, now we're talking a lot about calling and character.
I just want to add something to that. I think you guys will obviously have more examples of this. But for me, a character is tested when you say you will not be on stage for a certain amount of time. And and also then the conversation after that, if the person is not ready in terms of whatever the reason is, that shows character as well. Do they show up for rehearsals? Do they, even though you're not giving them the stage time, that says so much about a person's character for me.
Have you had people leave because of that? Like they say, listen, I want to be a part of the team, and you say, okay, it's great, we do an audition, there's a process. And then they realize, oh, wait a minute, so I'm not going to be singing right off the bat, or I'm going to be playing my instrument, and then they leave because of that?
No, I've had that a bunch of times.
Okay.
and that makes it interesting because, as I said earlier, you see the potential in someone, but it's going to take that character, it's going to take that commitment from their side to be a part of the process. And I think it has a lot to do, in my opinion, it has a lot to do with humility. Because humility comes into the space where you say, okay, I'm serving the team. If you're part of the team, humility says, I'm serving the team. And if that means in this season, my role in the team is to work on my progress or work on my skill development, then you need to be humble enough to accept that and go through that process.
For me, the little things when people are in that phase is how they serve. You just said it, serve. Is how they maybe make a coffee, or can I help you with a cable, or can I help you with, or sorry, can I bring you a mic that's in the storeroom? That says so much about the person's character.
You're bringing up the topic of servanthood, and for me, that's part of the character conversation. But I think the servanthood thing is so diluted in our culture.
Sure.
We serve to get something, and if it's only a servant thing while I'm waiting to get on stage, I often look at people that's been part of the team for a long time, not just the people who are new, and I sometimes feel like we need to stir this culture a little bit more in the people who've been a part of the team for the longest time. And that's not just a new people thing. Okay, now here's a scenario, and I've been a part of worship teams for such a long time, and I'm frustrated many times where in an audition or a first conversation, I realize, wow, this person, I can sense the calling on their lives. I can see they have character for days. And then we get to the audition side of things, and the competency is not there. They come to you and say, listen, I realize now it's time for me to pick up the baton, and I want to serve, and it's time for me to lead worship. I'm going, great, wonderful. Let me hear you sing or play an instrument or whatever, or dance, and then the competency isn't there necessarily. What level of competence is required? Is the church as forgiving as we sometimes think it is?
I think we are, in all honesty.
Okay.
Because I think, again, in certain spaces, we deal with certain leaders.
Okay.
We deal with certain dynamics. And I think to strengthen that process, I don't want to use the word standard, but we need to set some form of that in terms to if we say we value excellence, then that's something we need to work towards. And I think if someone will work towards excellence, it's going to take some time for them to give their best in terms of that competence, and to take ownership of developing their competence.
I think the older I get, the more my shepherd heart wants to embrace them. But then I remember what Rick Moser told me 14 years ago, and saying a worship team is not a hospital.
Okay.
And also, depending on if you are in a worship team where or a big campus where there's a lot of musos, depending on also if you have the time, and obviously the leaders that can help the equipping or the skill development, that can be done. But there must also be a part of a standard where in the audition, you must make the decision what's going to hurt that person in the long run, and also if it's going to contribute to your team or not. And if there's maybe another platform with the competency, with the character, where they will flourish. Because you cannot if a person can't sing on pitch, it's going to take a while to get there. Maybe 3 years. You don't have 3 years.
And let's just be honest, everybody is nervous.
Obviously,
and sick during an audition. They're always got a cough or something. It's normal. And we've been there. We've had to endure auditions.
It's going to sound better when I sing over a mic.
It's going to sound better when it's just going to be amplified. But what I found was, and I've had to be that guy saying people, listen, I don't think you're ready yet. But the way we do this as a Doxa Deo family is very, very important as well. As leaders, we love people. We want to see people grow and rise up into their calling and take up that responsibility. And you've used the word responsibility, which I love, because I think if we talk about calling, if we talk about your competency, your character, there's one word, and we like the word commitment, but commitment has like a little bit of a sour taste in our mouth sometimes, because we feel like it's not a lacquer word, hey?
I love the word.
I like the word, but the word responsibility puts it in your hands to take responsibility. It's the ability to respond, and it gives the responsibility to be committed to those things in your hand. Because I've had people say, "Listen, I want to be a part of the worship team because my relationship with God isn't that great, and this environment will sort that out." And I'm saying, no, it's not going to do that.
Yeah.
It probably will, but that's not the reason.
It will help. It will support. Because now let's get to the space where we talk about the community. I've had people audition, and during the conversation, I realize this person has the calling, is competent or she's competent, there's character, but I'm concerned about this one thing we call chemistry, is how is your style and who you are as a person going to fit into our space? But isn't everybody welcome? How do you deal with that if you think, okay, I'm unsure of, are you going to be, do you want to be a part of a community, or do you just be yourself and be individualistic?
If I can be blunt about also commitment and also about chemistry, it's not about you.
There's it.
It's not about you. Again, I'm going to say it's not about you. If you can surrender and remember that it's a gift, and you come and you've surrendered it, and you can get over yourself, and if God said this is the campus and this is the worship team, it's obviously a little bit of effort, and then you work on it. And there must be real relationships. There must be trust. That's a big one for me. There must be interactive conversations. But it all boils down to it's not about you. And sometimes it takes effort.
Yeah, I do.
If I may repeat something that I used in the songwriting session, I think that is applicable for this part of the conversation. Every ministry or every church has a vision.
Oh, yes.
And it's crucial for you when joining that team, that family, which is part of the bigger family, which is part of that vision. You need to align with that. And that's going to determine, with what you just said as well, determine chemistry within that family.
So I've had many auditions where we get to this point, and I ask the people, like, okay, so are you part of this church? And they say, and you can see there's like, it depends.
There,
like, okay, is it gonna change the outcome of this conversation?
Yes.
Whether
Will I
say
still
yes
do
or no? Now, there's not really, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not a scripture that says thou shalt only serve in one congregation ever. Dot, point, finish. But the principle of, if and that's the chemistry thing, is saying, listen, I'm not just a musician that's rocking up on a Sunday, doing my little thing and going home, and that's it for me. It's not about the platform. It's about being part of this community.
Absolutely, yes.
And being part of a family.
Part of the family.
So I encourage people to say, listen, choose the family that you're going to be in and serve there and be fully committed there. Yeah. Have you had people say, listen, I want to serve at 10 churches and play, and everybody loves me there, and that's okay? Have you had that before?
Yeah, I've had that.
I have, especially if you need that instrument in that space and time in your worship team.
We're going to get to this now in a second.
And then obviously you want to embrace the person. Obviously everybody's welcome in terms of if they went through the audition process and stuff. But it's so difficult if the vision and the word is not integrated into their being. And obviously you can go and serve wherever you feel like it if you don't understand the mandate, if you don't understand the vision, if you don't understand family and who we are in terms of city changes. But it normally boils down to that it stresses your team out more. It's more disruptive for growth, for unity, for chemistry.
Building relationships.
Yeah.
I think there's an aspect, one of the Doxa Deo values, speaking from that perspective, is reproduction.
Oh, yes.
And in discipleship in your team, that's so crucial. Yes. Finding your place, being included in this family, also then to disciple someone else. I've been in a situation where I lost it, and I don't lose it. And someone...
I've not ever seen it.
I don't lose it. So a team member who was in that space, traveling around, who had this kind of mindset, playing in different churches, not being part of...
Not anchoring
in a family. Yeah. And it came to an end. And that specific person part of that worship team left a gap in the team. And I'm like, yes, but that challenged my mindset, challenged my heart in terms of being anchored in a family will also then give you a sense of ownership to disciple. And I think that's crucial for our worship teams and our arts teams.
One of the most challenging things I found was that everybody comes from a different context. Everybody that comes through our doors and want to be a part of our teams and want to serve. And we really want to put so much emphasis on if you are attending church, you need to serve somewhere. You can't just sit there and not do anything. But people come from their worldview of what worship is and what it means to be a part of a team and is different. And I think that's something that I found is very different to reconcile. It's not impossible, but it takes time for people to kind of get the DNA of what is Doxa Deo about, what is our church about, what is this community about, and is it something, and I give people grace and say, listen, figure out, is this the community you want to be in? Before you commit fully to serving all the time, because I've had people serve, and then realizing, wait a minute, but this is not who I am necessarily.
I think it's a little bit of character as well.
Good.
Because you're not really serving, you're gigging. If I can be very harsh, if you're hopping from, then you're not contributing, then you're not...
It's about you.
And it's about you. And also, we need to grow in the word together. We need to pray together. We need to and there's a spiritual responsibility for as well, which you don't get. If you are not integrated into a team where I serve, where I get my spiritual food, where I'm being kept accountable, you're missing out on the most beautiful journey of discipleship in a worship team. So you're not actually part of them, of us. Or
very good, very good.
Yeah, you're actually missing out on the other aspects of being part of a family.
The beauty.
Yeah. So towards the end of our discussion, I mean, I know it makes it sound like we're describing the perfect Christian, like a level 5 Christian. Like you have to have all these things and then you can start joining the team. It's not true. It's not true.
Yeah.
Obviously, we all want mature, whole people to be part of our teams, but that's not, I mean, Jesus didn't come for perfect Christians. I mean, he and yes, the worship team isn't a hospital, but this is an environment that is going to ask of you to be committed to your calling, to grow in your character, to be willing to be told, listen, you need to work on your competency a little bit. I mean, the best conversations for me I've had, the best things that has made me grow as a worshiper and as a musician was not the after church service lady that comes and says, listen, you sang so beautifully or you played so well. It has been those moments in my life where people say, listen, this is not good enough.
Exactly.
There's more in you and you are lazy. You're not developing it. And I'm like, I don't like those conversations. So you need to be willing to just work on your competency. Are you a team player or not?
Exactly.
Is it about you or is it about the team? One of the things in Doxa Deo that we say very often is we don't celebrate a gift. Now that's not very lucky if you're an artist, right? Because you like to have people say, wow, that was done. You sang so beautifully. It's not like we're ignoring that. We're not celebrating an individual gift. We are celebrating a team. A team. And then lastly, I think that to make sure that the context from where you come or came and the space that you're walking into, that they will align and say, listen, I'm going to adjust my worldview.
Yes.
The way that I'm growing in, the way I see art, the way I see my calling, and my willingness to grow. So it's not just committed towards the church itself, but committed toward what God has called me to do in that space. I want to thank you so much for this time spent. I know we can go on for a lot longer, but as a starting conversation, I think this is something well worth thinking about.
Give some good foundations.
Laying foundations down.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks, guys.